Okay, great work, Mac. Now let's take down the next challenger. Left, right, left, right. That's it, baby. Push it out, Mac. Come on, push it out. Faster, faster. Come on, you can do it. Quick feet, Mac. Quick feet. Keep it up, Mac. Keep it up.
Yoshi, the rowdy and ravenous rascal of the Glitz Pit, has quite the reputation to precede him. On this channel, we know him as the apex predator of the TTYD partners. And it's fairly obvious why, considering that he's the only character in the entire game that can beat the game without anyone else's help. Something we've already seen a couple of years ago. Yoshi is the exception. However, by now, we've made developments that manage to show up that other partners don't necessarily need Yoshi's help to beat the game, which would do quite a lot to really even the playing field. And now it's up to Yoshi to defend his title. Will he have this game licked, or will he suffer some serious heartburn? It's time we found out. It's showtime! Stop me if you heard this before. We fight Lord Crump, and after beating him, we're given access to partners, and we already have Yoshi available to us, thanks to the practice codes that were created and compiled by Zephyllus. There isn't really much we can do out of the gate though, so we frankly descend into Rogueport sewers and fight the first fight against the Gourmet trio. And it's here we get into Yoshi's moves. He can use his Gulp skill and his Ground Pound. The Ground Pound in particular is a multi-hit attack that does 1 damage per hit, but it hits up to 4 times, making it fairly strong this early in the game. The only real drawback is that against enemies with defense, it doesn't do anything at all. It's also naturally not very effective against spiky enemies, but fortunately, Yoshi's second skill, Gulp, allows him to do damage just fine. This is a piercing attack, meaning it ignores defense entirely, and starting off, it does a flat 4 damage to the target in front, as well as 4 damage to the nearest grounded target behind them. This combination of moves this early on means that Amsa is not in any real danger. And yes, his name is in fact Amsa, named after the only Yoshi to ever do it. It's one trip down to the 1,000-year door where we get our first badge, which doesn't do anything for us, and I then go to buy some badges from the badge shop. Nothing too important right now, just some last stands. And we following that go to fight the Blooper in Rogueport sewers. This fight follows a very simple flow. Eliminate the tentacles, then gun for the main body. With Blooper himself having only 3 HP per tentacle, Ground Pound can easily one-shot each one of them. And the main body itself has only 12 HP, where after 3 ground pounds, it's eliminated. And just like that, we're off. Something I aim to do as soon as possible is get the badge Peekaboo from Dazzle, mainly because I won't be able to tattle and it's just convenient having HP visible on screen. With that sorted out, let's begin making some headway through our actual adventure. Embarking on Schwunk Fortress, we have to take out both the Ball Clefs and the Bristles here first. Obviously the enemies here have high defense, which means that Ground Pound won't do anything, but Gulp works just fine on the Ball Clefs, so there's not really a problem here. Though for obvious reasons, we can't use Ground Pound on the Bristles, and funnily enough, because of their spikes, we can't even approach to use Gulp on them either. So like all other partners, Yoshi's forced to use a Power Block to progress. But hey, that's fine. We still have one more Power Block to use however we please. And we ain't really in a rush to use it either. Schwunk Fortress has fuzzies, and they're all one-shot by Ground Pound. It's admittedly fairly slow, but hey, items aren't needed here, and the fights aren't nearly as slow as other partners like Goombella or especially Flurry. Neither is Gold Fuzzy, who I admittedly wanted to hit twice with Ground Pound but hit only once, and that made the fight last a little longer than I liked it to. Regardless, the enemies here do only 1 damage per hit, so they really aren't dangerous. And it likewise also shows Yoshi's weakness rather well, considering that his Ground Pound does only 1 damage per hit, so deja vu. Following that, there ain't much keeping us from Hooktail Castle, though beware of red bones. Yeah, this is definitely deja vu. Now my attacks are doing absolutely nothing to these enemies, but at least we have items to fall back on. I mean, we could stockpile on a bunch of turtley leaves and use Gulp the entire way through, but for Amsa, I don't think that'll really be necessary. Plus, you can already see this, my max HP is only 10. Let's not needlessly endanger the child, okay? Yeah, so I used 1 Fire Flower in addition to Gulp to end this fight in 2 turns. Couldn't really ask for a much more clean fight than that, to be honest. I proceed to get the Paper Curse, Mega Rush P, and then go after Hooktail. To save an RNG later in the video, if I actually have to worry about it, I use my mystery here, which ends up being a Thunder Rage. Would have preferred a Shooting Star, but you know what, it's whatever. That's just one of my wishes that won't be granted after all. Regardless, after a Fire Breath that does 4 damage and a Stomp that does 5 damage, we find Amsa at 1 HP, and that means our Ground Pound has a base power of 5 now, meaning the full 4 hits does a whopping 14 damage. Enough to throttle Hooktail for Phase 1, and one-shot her in Phase 2. Hooked, lined, and sunk. With us still having an ample number of star pieces, I buy the badge Power Plus P from Dazzle, and I rank Amsa up to Super Rank, teaching him the new move Mini Egg. A move very near and dear to my heart, as I really love eating breakfast. The most important meal of the day, so bring it up Amsa's way. And since I'm benevolent and want to share my gift with others, let's give some eggs to Gus. What you should already know is that Gus has a spear which is spiky, which means that we cannot ground pound him. We can damage him with Gulp, but that takes a lot of FP, and the damage itself would be really slow. So what I actually do is go in with Mega Rush P again, let my HP get to 1, and once that happens, I use Mini Egg to do 6 damage per egg and knock him out. This isn't exactly necessary to do right now, but I am just about to level up, and I want to be able to use more BP for Chapter 2. It means I can keep Peekaboo equipped, as well as equip Power Plus P, which will be vital for Chapter 2's boss. Before that, the Shadow Sirens. Pretty smooth sailing as always. All 3 Sirens are 2-shot by Ground Pound, though I did try to be a little fancy and use Mini Egg alongside it. To limited success. I ended up triggering the magic attacks from all 3 Sirens early. Also, I'm reminded that shrinking them will not reduce the power of their magic attacks either, which kinda sucks. But this fight regardless simply was not hard. But you know, there's always a rematch. They can get much harder there. But that's then, and now we're getting introduced to the X-Knots. Or as I previously called them, the Cross Knots. And in light of what Twitter's become, you know what, no, the X-Knots are too good for Twitter. Regardless, they're one-shot by Ground Pound. Though if I have the FP for it, Gulp works really well here too. And it works out because I don't really need to use FP at all for the fight with Magnus Land Grapple. The first 4 turns are simple as can be, repeatedly using Ground Pound. Though I do feel it necessary to say that this fight is only really possible thanks to Power Plus P being available from Dazzle. Otherwise, Amsa's Ground Pound damage would still be only 1, and that would be subtracted to 0 after Magnus' defense. So we really don't have much of a choice as far as what badges to get right now. Magnus himself will try to attack us, but the damage itself really isn't all that big of a deal. Though once Magnus' HP falls to 20 or less, the X-Fist will come out, and these things actually are a pretty big deal. Doing 4 damage per hit is not a small number, especially when there's 2 of them. Fortunately, doing a lot of damage is exactly what I want to see. While I keep attacking, the X-Fists do their thing, knocking Yoshi down to eventually only having 1 HP left, while Magnus himself still has 10. And thanks to Mega Rush P, it takes 1 more Ground Pound to finish him off. Yeah, minus the items we had to use for Hooktail, you can see that Chapter 1 and 2 with Yoshi alone is kind of a joke. Though to be fair, Magnus Land Grapple has a bit of a reputation for being an easy mode boss. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. What about Chapter 3? This chapter involves a lot of fighting. And with so many different enemies to fight, with so many different ways you have to fight them to beat them, surely Amsa will struggle here, right? Well, we'll see about that. The first fight here is against 5 Goombas. Ground Pound works just fine, but I use Mini Egg because there's 5 different targets. Mini Egg is a bit annoying in that the targets for each egg is entirely random, but when there's 5 different Goombas, I would say the odds are pretty good you'll hit a different Goomba with each egg. Coming up next are the KP Koopas, which are all ground pounded 1 by 1 to knock them all out. The third fight includes 3 Pokies rising up to us. Since these enemies are spiky, we have to use Gulp or Mini Egg. I use Gulp because it's more reliable. I did want to show Yoshi eating a Poke if there's only a head left, but unfortunately when there was only 1 Poke left, it just spawned another one. A bit of a shame really, since I'm trying to reduce the number of star points I get in this challenge. You likely already know this, considering that I imagine most people who watch these videos have played Paper Mario before, but we have these conditions that Grubba gives us that we have to follow to be able to advance. And since we're only using 1 character and it's a partner, there are times we get conditions that are flat out impossible to complete. If that happens, we reset. Usually I just skip chapter 3, but just this once I'll show the entirety of the chapter for you because I know you want to see it. The dead bones are basically dead meat. Ground pound 1 by 1, they'll all go down. They can keep the fight going for as long as they want, but unless they rebuild literally every turn, they're not going to win. Spike Storm involves a Lakitu and 2 Spinies. Ground Pound the Lakitu, use Gulp on the Spinies when they're both exposed. Piece of pie. The following 4 to sneak up on us, the Handed Overs. Gulp to one-shot the bandits. A second Gulp meanwhile does a lot of damage to the big bandits, but not quite gonna want to KO them both. But a Ground Pound will finish them off just fine. You know, before getting here, I had the idea of skipping Chapter 3 entirely. As a matter of fact, I already had the Ultra Hammer, which means we could already get the dubious paper. In case you were wondering what would happen if we got it early, to be honest, not much. Though the game assumes we've already been in the minor league before. At least only in a select few areas anyway. The Armored Harriers cutscene proceeds as normal, but when we return to the minor league, we are actually in the major league, and Yoshi even remarks that we're back in the major leagues now, despite having never actually been in here before. The music also changes immediately after getting the dubious paper, which is especially scuffed. And because I guess the game thinks we're already in the major league, or at least we were here before, Grubba doesn't congratulate us when we actually get to the major league first time, and we're not given a 30 coin bonus either. The guard also at first assumes that we're not in the minor league anymore, even though he's telling us we can walk right back inside, and going to the major league locker room sees us be rejected. But walking away and then returning to the minor league locker room guard does see us be allowed back inside, so I guess it's kinda weird, but whatever. The fight following that freak accident, we had the Mind Bogglers. Gulp, Ground Pound, gone. Next up, the Punk Rocks. These mossy minerals once again see themselves get Gulp to get knocked out. And Gulp is sadly our only real option here too. And now finally, at the end of the minor league, we have the Bomb Squad. 4 Bombs, 4 Ground Pounds, once again backed by Power Plus P. You know, I get that Chapter 3 is a very popular chapter, but when you play for challenge runs, it's just tedious. Though maybe that's my fault. After all, I'm so restricted that oftentimes I get conditions that are flat out impossible to complete. And if they're not, they're extraordinarily slow. I'm already playing with what, 20% of my total kit? And now Grubba's taking even more control away from me? Like, give me a break, bro. My little Amsa's like, what, 2 days old? And even then, he made it to the top of the minor league entirely undefeated. The crowd loves him, and they would desire nothing less than the Armored Harriers be put in their place. Funnily enough though, these 2 stinkwads didn't think it's a good idea to taunt a literal baby, giving special attention to their ability to pierce any substance, as well as I guess just being entirely indestructible. I mean, if you ask me, they can't be that good. Despite being quote-unquote indestructible, you're the lowest ranked fighters in the major league. And this literal 2 days and 5 minutes old child can wipe the floor of you all the same. Looks like you're not so indestructible after all, huh? It's honestly quite beautiful. The one partner that cannot be halted by the Armored Harriers. Because, my friends, Amsa is the exception. Let's keep going. From the Major League this time. But this time while accompanied by a mysterious fellow we call X. Who is X though? To that, I don't know. But in light of recent events, nah, too easy. Back to the fights though, we have the tiny Spinies. Chew 'em up, spit 'em out. Immediately after, there's a pair of Bristles. We saw this exact same fight in Shrunk Fortress, and once again, we cannot approach or strike from above because we'll get hurt. But you know, we have options. Before, our only choice was using a power block, but we can use the Ice Storm we found in the Major League, or even just let our HP fall to peril and use Mini Egg with Mega Rush B equipped. It was slow, very slow, but I would rather do this still than use items. Even if I first used a Mini Egg resulted in all 3 aiming for only 1 bristle. Musk then tells us to go to the watering hole. When I was a kid, I didn't know what a watering hole even was. But as an adult, yeah, I know this is the juice shop. What's weird though is that they don't even sell juice here. What's the point? But this gives us a redundant hammer, which we then use to get the dubious paper, which then allows us to progress through the game. Approaching from down under, we got the Shady Koopas. And oh look, an earthquake. That I can't do anything about because I'm not allowed to attack for the first 3 turns. Yay! After my turns are up though, I use Gulp to hit the 2 on the ground. I then Ground Pound them both, and then I use Mini Egg followed up by another Ground Pound to knock out the one that's flying. Ugh, I hate how when I defend, items ignore my defense anyway. I need to build up my iron. I'll take it. 2 Gulps later, we win, you reek, let's keep going. How about the Magic Koopa Masters? The order I go in is green, red, and then white. Which begs the question, is Amsa Hungarian? In reality, I wish I went green, white, and then red, because the red Magic Koopa has a Mega Rush P, and should it have created illusions, that would have made it very easy to see which was the real one. Fortunately, Mini Egg managed to suss out the real one, and then I was able to ground pound it to finish it off. Free cake! Free cake! Oh crap, it's the fuzz! So the first I take out is the green fuzzy because it can clone itself. And I do that with Gulp because, whatever, the black fuzzy does not really matter. The way I saw it, the flower fuzzy will take my FP anyway. I may as well be the one to use it first. Oh hello, Gay Bowser. Good thing I went into this with Power Plus P already equipped. A few ground pounds, a bit of dizziness thanks to a bucket, though it really did not matter very much anyway. And Bowser's horns revealed themselves to be rather dull. Oh Amsa, if only you knew your legacy. In the past, your kind has shown themselves to be rather capable of dealing with Bowser. Okay, I know that's a Dark Craw, but in my heart, it's the Reaper Bird. 2 Power Plus Ps, 3 uses of Mini Egg, 1 Dark Craw goes down. Egad, Amsa! Such language! But on the bright side, we do get to see Miss Mouse again. And there's also Charged P, which I may or may not be using later in the video. Meow. Now, Hamma, Bama, and Flare, Grubba was pretty adamant about not being allowed to use Yoshi in battle here. But you know, after enough resets, even he can be convinced. Anyways, not really much to say here. Just use ground pound, maybe a few gulps if you feel like it. This hate mail can't stop me because I can't read! I'm feeling charitable. Red Chomps! I forgot to click record. I used Gulp twice though. Oh, what I would give to be Ultra Rank right now. Coop! When I was first getting into challenge running, I was such a massive fan of Coop's videos. The Coopinator, meanwhile, well, let's just say I would advise bringing some mushrooms. You're probably thinking, but Aaron, you have a power block, why not just use that? Well, I didn't bring it, and good thing I didn't because I wouldn't really be able to use it. I had to win this after getting attacked 5 different times. So I take this as yet another chance to use Peril status to my advantage. I would Gulp, let the Coopinator keep attacking me. Then I would position myself to be at 6 HP just in case. And if the Coopinator actually ended up charging, well, I would just eat a mushroom and get to 11 HP, putting me just out of range for death. A Mini Egg to follow that up, and I win. Well, I guess I could design better posters. After all, graphic design is my passion.
That's it! I can't take it anymore!
We finally made it to Rock Hawk. Hey Hawk Hogan, you dropped your eggs! Oh wait, this is a boss fight, but it's Rock Hawk, what do I really freaking care? If he's tiny, then once he gets to his HP value or goes on the ceiling, he won't actually do it. But yeah, the majority of this fight was ground pound and Mini Egg. Both do about the same amount of damage because I have a Power Plus P equipped, and you know, I have so much FP that I'm not really hurting on using it. My health did get pretty low, but again, we're not really in any real danger here. And after enough turns, we just win. And since we had Yoshi with us from the very beginning, this was entirely undefeated. Hey, I resent that. I'm still plenty full of life. Okay, we finally made it to Macho Grubba. So after that whole ordeal with the Glitz Pit, we're actually at a considerably higher level now. Again, with Power Plus P, Mini Egg, and Ground Pound do the same amount of damage. Though for this fight, I already knew I'm not going to be using Gulp at all, so I instead equipped Charge P. I use this move if either Grubba makes himself dodgy or increases his defense. Since when that happens, Yoshi's damage will be greatly reduced. This is especially true for Mini Egg because this attack does not check for charge status. Imagine my shock using charge twice and still see Mini Egg do only 2 damage per hit. On the bright side, we still had time because if Grubba chooses to buff his defense or make himself dodgy, he can't really do damage to Mario then. Though we have to use charge at least twice or we just lose out on damage. While a charge attack from Grubba himself can be nearly fatal for us. As a matter of fact, if I didn't have damage dodge equipped, I would have lost on this turn. Good thing it's after here that Grubba's fast status expired, and Grubba will always reapply it before attacking again. So we had just enough time to finish him off. Finally ending for us, Chapter 3. A blip on the radar for other partners, but for Amsa, it was the absolute longest freaking one. I sure do hope you enjoyed these 10 minutes of insanity that we spent through Chapter 3. An interlude of cosplaying and watching Hag vs. Hag, and we're now about ready to start Chapter 4. Of course, there's the obligatory shooting star we get from Eve, though with Amsa, I don't know how much we'll really need it. Something nice about this challenge is that if a partner has an indirect attack, like in Amsa's case Mini Egg, items become considerably less important. All that really matters now is how much FP can you muster, and there are plenty of gem and jellies going around and not golden leaves. But that much is all irrelevant when it comes to Atomic Bow. Another boss that really does not demand much explanation. A lot of ground pounds, a single use of Mini Egg which doesn't even shrink. To be honest, it probably can't even shrink anyway. And we see Amsa basically bust this ghost. What I find more important about Atomic Boo though is the reward you get for defeating it. You see, we need electrified status for a boss fight coming up in Chapter 4, and Lucky Star is one of the few badges that can— Oh. Well, I'm sad now. I guess we'll just go ahead and fight Quinn then. Using Mini Egg on turn 1, nothing Quinn can do can really hurt us. He transforms later once his HP falls below 20, but at that point it's just a few more ground pounds and yeah, he's done. However, once we get the Crystal Star and leave this place—
Oh crap. What?! What?! No! 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 Are you kidding?! You gotta be kidding me! No! No! No!
But seriously, we got duped and Amsa's no longer with us. And with no source of— Ow, I bit my tongue. With no source of electrified damage, there is absolutely no way that we can beat Quinn because this game has Vivian and Adamant to help us. Which is great because we need Vivian to actually get our name and body back, but it sucks in the fact that for this challenge, we can do literally nothing but defend ourselves. Really wish I had that Lucky Start badge now. Though, to be fair, it wouldn't really help us that much anyway. Even if Electrify did trigger as a status buff, it only lasts for 2 turns. And for Quinn, we would need it to last for at least 40. So we go to fight Quinn and his quintuplets, and what ends up happening is that they can attack me, but we can't attack them. And so I'm just left here waiting, letting Quinn and my partners do me in, slowly but surely, and then it hit me. So let's not fool around anymore. What are we gonna do? It's actually very simple. You see, before even setting foot into Chapter 4, I went down the pit of 100 trials to get a certain badge from there. The badge in question being Zap Tap. This badge grants Mario permanent electrified status, so if enemies attack him directly, they'll receive recoil damage. I would talk about how this went, but most of the enemies here we already fought earlier in the game, and they don't get even nearly as hard as some of the harder fights in Glitzville either. I intended on getting Happy Flower because I don't want to get trapped in the pit since I don't have a way of restoring FP otherwise, but I forgot it, and I was afraid that would be my undoing down here. But I did prior get Flower Finder. I did also have Flower Saver, which did end up being rather helpful to us as well. I did have to play pretty sparingly, but at the end of it all, we never actually ran out of FP, and we did make it out alive, peachy keen. And that brings us to this moment. And so now, all I have to do is just have Mario in front, repeatedly use the defend action, and watch Quinn slowly but surely whittle down his own HP until he finally falls to 0. Even though Amsa was ripped from our control, technically he did get the Zap Tap badge all by himself, and for the fight with Quinn, Mario had to do literally nothing but just defend and wait until Quinn knocked himself out. So as far as I'm concerned, the purity of this challenge is still intact. Way to go, Amsa. You got past the real bottleneck of this series. I'm proud of you. As a reward, let's cross coast to Keelhaul Key. Though before I knew it, this is where things started to really heat up. If you don't already know, embers are enemies that are actively dangerous to touch. Unless you're Amsa. Now as far as Amsa's concerned, he can pop one of these embers in his mouth and feel absolutely nothing. I wish I could show Amsa actually doing it, but I have to use old footage of Uwu doing it instead. The previous Yoshi I did this challenge with, because apparently I forgot to click record when I did this the first time. And yes, his name was actually Uwu. Why was he named that? When you're a really small channel and you want to appeal to your audience, it gives individual viewers a lot of power. Beyond that little spark though, the rest of Chapter 5 saw us cruise in control. Neither of the two bosses were really that noteworthy. Literally the only thing I did for either of the two was just ground pound. Thanks to my defenses and Amsa's massive HP stat, we were not in any real danger of getting knocked out at all. No peril required either. Though sadly, at the Cortez we reached level 10, which means that we're on a B-list star stage from now on, which can only mean one thing, which will very often not be good. Well, we'll show them what you got, Amsa. we'll show them what you got. On a semi-unrelated note, if Lavia were to ask you to get him some island fare food, what do you think would happen if we gave him a kill mango? I mean, if he thinks coconuts are just cliched, then no doubt he'd appreciate something a little more original. Let me know what you think in the comments. With Bobbery now by our side, we can get the up arrow and rank up our partners to Ultra rank. Meaning it's time for Amsa to say hello to having 30 max HP, an extra hit for Mini Egg and Ground Pound, and a new move in Stampede. Think of it like a screen-wide 6-hit power bounce. And we're gonna have fun tearing through bosses with it as well. I make sure to also pack heavy on the badges, because for the Chapter 6 boss, I like having Mario with at least 5 defense. It makes a lot of sense for some more, considering that the miasmas themselves have exactly 5 attack power. And so if they do attack Mario, you want to be prepared. Meanwhile, Amsa has attack power to spare to wipe out the miasmas one by one, which is really handy when you want to focus on only one attacking at a time if you wanted to use them to reach 1 HP. Though for my first attempt, I got to the phase where the claw would come out when my HP was at 11. And since I know it's going to hit both Amsa and Mario, I likewise note that after this attack, I'm falling to 1 HP. Which means just one more Stampede and they are out of here.
Disgusting black creatures. Get out of my sight.
What? They said it inside of the hedgehog, can't I say it too? Let's take it from the top. Besides, I forgot Peekaboo anyway. So wipe out the miasmas, do a little chip damage to Smorg himself, let your HP fall to 1, and then let her rip. Welcome back, Emblem. I missed you. Though since this is the last part or only video I'm making in sequence, let's wire it up. Not much standing between us and getting to the moon, just this wild goose chase for General White, which is, well, very annoying. Though apparently I really love it because I got to Chapter 3's Glitzville, then I left without actually talking to the bartender, which triggers the Great Shriek cutscene. I was just that focused on the hot sauce. Like I always say, I have a single track mind. Regardless, I do eventually make it to the moon, and while here, I get some items I know for a fact that I want for later. Stopwatch, Volt Shroom, Power Punch, HP Drain. I'd show all the items, but my capture card was giving me issues, so yeah. The Elite Exos were not much of a bother either, though I am left wondering if Yoshi's already managed to colonize the moon if Amsa's able to summon a whole horde of them out of nowhere. Really makes you think. At the end of the X-Nut Fortress though, we didn't have to fight Magnus One Grapple 2.0. And he's about as sad as I remembered him being. Just use Ground Pound, keep Mario alive using items, and then once your HP falls to 1, use 2 Ground Pounds and you win. I did have it happen where after the first Ground Pound I saw Fog appear, but the next attack did not see me miss, which I'm glad to see. With that, we see Lord Crumb blasting off again, as well as Amsa obtaining the 7th and last Crystal Star. We've now officially reached the home stretch. And even though it's Yoshi, I'll have you know that the Palace of Shadow can get pretty gnarly out there, but it does no one any good to speculate, so let's go and make them know your name. Off the bat, the first slide we have here is Dark Bones. This is a frustrating one. Without the 2 Power Plus Ps, Amsa can't do any damage outside of using Gulp, and more often than not, these Dry Bones are holding items. That all being said, I would have won my first attempt, which also saw none of the Dry Bones holding any items at all, if not for the fact that I sadly have a tendency to miss guards, with it's ambiguous who's actually getting targeted. It's also here I learned that if multiple Dry Bones fall at once, they don't all get back up at the same time. Nonetheless, winning this fight is doable, but you have to be consistent. After 2 losses, we do come out on top. Though I do have to wonder how much of that was also just due to the fact that I used a stopwatch and literally all 5 of the enemies got stopped at once. Apparently that's a 75% chance per Dry Bones and 65% chance for Dark Bones, but I don't really know how lucky that actually is. Next up is Gloomtail, in an iconic clash of Draco vs Dino. Not particularly hard, Amsa's fairly gifted here, being able to swipe multiple times in a single attack. Though my first attempt was a bit of an oopsie daisy because I brought too little FP going into this fight first time. So I exchanged 5 HP for Mario for 5 FP for Yoshi to use. Though this also means needing a more potent healing item, so it's a good thing that Ultra Shrooms exist in the Palace of Shadow. Though it does make me wonder what was the point of getting the medium reel in the first place. Either way, since Amsa's HP is 30 max, I'm able to consistently force Gloomtail's damage to be 8 throughout the entire fight by equipping Defend plus P and P if they down P. With these badges, the only attack that Amsa has to guard will be the Poisonous Breath, which is good for 2 reasons. 1, the attack pierces, so unlike the Bite and the Stomp, it would ignore my defense anyway. And 2, not guarding the Poisonous Breath as the attack would imply, would mean that there's a chance of me getting poisoned. In addition to this, I had Amsa eat a horsetail, which allowed him to reach exactly 1 HP after 4 attacks. And from there, a ground pound took Gloomtail down. A word to the wise, by the way, after beating Gloomtail, there's a crack in the wall you can bomb, and in there there's an Ultra Shroom and Gem and Jelly. Believe it or not, both of these 2 items would end up being very important soon after, whether or not I actually knew it. The Riddle Tower, I ended a fight with Gloomtail in peril, and this isn't really a boss fight. Plus, I didn't really have the coins to use a heart block, so yeah, bye-bye to these things. After the riddles are solved, however, this leads to one last fight with the Shadow Sirens. I didn't really have a plan for this, I just knew that I was not going to start this fight with only 1 HP. As a matter of fact, I don't bother with Mega Rush P here. It's just too unreliable. So all I really did here was just use Charge twice. Of course, I didn't know what my HP would be by the end of turn 2, but I figured I have 2 Power Plus Ps and P at the down P. Use Charge twice, then use Stampede and Beldum's try to get knocked out. But with the damage I ended up taking, I was at like 4 HP at the end of turn 2, which means that Power Rush is actually active now. And combined with my other attack up badges, I only need 1 Stampede to knock everyone out. So yeah, that happened. Amsa, I could not say it better myself. So far, Chapter 8 just has not been that tough for him. Some fights were a little obnoxious, but still, nothing that Amsa couldn't really handle. And then there's Grotus. Yeah, this fight was actually really bad. The way Grotus is designed, it forces pretty much every partner to use items to at least some extent to get anywhere. And Amsa here is no exception. Especially since his multi-hitting attack has a low base power to start. Combine that with the fact that it's also checking for defense that Grotus has, and it quickly shows itself being super ineffective. Let's not forget, by the way, that Grotus is attacking you the entire time this fight goes on. And we really only have so many Ultra Shrooms and Gem and Jellies to pull from. So winning this fight comes down to having the right mix of attack items and healing items, alongside a Sleepy Sheep and any utility items I want for Bowser and Kamikoopa. Which for those 2, Bowser specifically, I brought 2 Volt Shrooms. You'll see why soon enough. For Grotus though, I put my eggs into knock out the Grotus X's and then put Grotus to Sleep Basket. Basically using a tech item, in my case an Ice Storm, formerly a Fire Flower, which also just makes me realize how little the Ice Storm really matters in this challenge. Kinda sad really. Regardless, when the Grotus X's are actually down, I use the Sleepy Sheep and bank on it actually putting Grotus to sleep. If it doesn't, I just lose, so ideally it actually works out here. I should also mention that once again I'm using Charge P. This took a lot of trial and error, but what I ended up settling on was using my first turn to use Charge. If my HP is still high after the first turn, I use Charge again. If I get knocked out, it's honestly no big deal. After all, Grotus is the first of 2 fights. If there is any time I'm going to be testing RNG, it'll be here and now. Regardless, I then go to use my Fire Flower, and if the Sleepy Sheep works, I use Charge 3 more times, and have Amsa use Ground Pound to knock Grotus off from max HP. Alternatively, if it takes 2 turns to get Amsa's HP too low, I just use Charge twice in a row then. In later attempts against Grotus, I also reasoned to get some extra Ultra Shrooms and Gem and Jellies, so that I would double dip 1 of each here at the very end of the fight to then knock out Grotus, so I could start Bowser and Kamikoopa with max HP and FP. Speaking of those 2, the fight is definitely more manageable, but it's still an uphill battle from here. Earlier attempts saw me try to fight Bowser and Kami head on. I still have my trusty Volt Shrooms to keep Bowser from being able to attack Mario, which is nice because it meant having to only focus on keeping Amsa healthy. But sadly, Amsa just does not have the firepower to win this fight as is. With so little FP after Grotus, we can't build enough power to beat Bowser and Kamikoopa in an efficient manner. Often what happens is that I'm able to beat Kamikoopa, but I have almost no FP left and almost no healing items left either, while Bowser still has a lot of HP to go through. And with both Amsa and Mario weakened, it doesn't take much to finish them off. It's worth mentioning that I had both a Shooting Star and a Power Punch, but that was actually a mistake. I actually want to save the Power Punch for the Shadow Queen. At the same time though, if I didn't bring this, I would have brought something else I would have thought I would not really need. And all the same, I'd have to get rid of it when going back to Rogueport to get some other items to try using here. On the bright side, after losing a few times, I have a better idea of what I want to actually bring here. So I ended up dropping my Power Punch and Shooting Star in favor of the extra Ultra Shroom and Gem and Jelly I mentioned earlier. Might I also say, it's a really good thing that this game gives you so many Ultra Shrooms for Chapter 8. Otherwise, I probably would have royally screwed myself over for this fight after using an Ultra Shroom for Gloomtail. But the real kicker is yet to come. The Gem and Jelly definitely helped being able to start this fight with max FP, But when fighting Bowser and Cammy, I actually miscalculated how many times I have to charge, and so Cammy had like 5 HP left, but she did not heal herself, though making herself huge wasn't necessarily preferable either. Either way, I had to make a choice. Continued using Volt Shrooms on myself so that Bowser can't attack Mario, and then have to anticipate whatever Cammy does with her magic next, or just go immediately for the KO on Cammy Koopa and try to tough Bowser out with 2 Ultra Shrooms left. It was a scary choice, but thanks to retrospect, it became a lot more clear what I should have actually done, considering a previous attempt saw Cammy make Bowser electrified, which is certainly one way to break out of the loop. So I finished Cammy off, but as a result, Bowser is no longer locked into only using 1 attack. But hey, 2 Ultra Shrooms, I can still work with this, especially when I have some FP left still. And on the following turn, I used Mini Egg. Much like with the Shadow Sirens, I gave up on using Mega Rush P here, and in its place, I equipped Last Stand P, which I think was actually a fairly good decision. After all, if my HP is low, I don't have any life shrooms, I'm going to want to heal myself. Though funnily enough, while trying to match the bingo slots, I got a follower point bingo. But my FP was at 0, so I tried to ignore the FP I had now. So I'm just attacking, and attacking, and attacking again. That's a mushroom bingo.
What you say?
And just like that, my HP is now maxed out. Okay, game. I get it. Fine. I win. Still have a whole Ultra Shroom left over, though. But the worst part is that after that fight, I level up, and now I'm level 14. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, if I had known I'd have been level 14 after that fight, I would have just grinded to level up after Grotus. Well, that's past me's problem now. But you wanna know what's really funny? I don't end up actually using the extra BP from leveling up. I went back to Roadport, withdrew some items for the final battle, and going into that final battle, I had all of my items already assembled, with 3 set BP just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. And the actual fight with the Shadow Queen was honestly a complete pushover. Sadly, I had some issues actually recording the final battle because my capture card was just being really finicky on me, so I ended up losing the first half of the fight where I was fighting the Invincible phase as well as when she was just Shadow Peach. And that really sucked because I actually had it happen where she attacked Yoshi the first 3 turns. And because I actively anticipated it, since I've done Goombella's challenge recently before this, and that let me figure out that there's actually a way to get into Peril very easily here, since at Ultra Rank, both Yoshi and Goombella have 30 max HP, and by turn 4, the Shadow Queen had only 87 HP left. But because the video was unusable, I had to re-record this, and Mario got attacked turn 1. As a result of this, I had to rely on my gradual syrup giving me more FP to keep using Mini Egg to suppress her damage. And it honestly works very well here. Before too long we see the Invincible phase activate, and since Amsa's HP is a little low, I double dip a Thunder Rage on the Shadow Queen and then Ultra Shroom on himself. Which, when you consider the fact that the Shadow Queen will be dividing her attacks between both Amsa and Mario, there's a pretty good chance we'll not have any life streams be lost here. Though that chance does go down quite a bit when I let myself get confused by Dangerous Breath, but thankfully, both times I did this fight, I never had Amsa not attack. Though funnily enough, Mario did attack Amsa both times when he was confused. But with that, the final fight can finally begin. And would you look at that, in the cutscene with all of the voices now cheering us on, it makes perfect sense to see Chapter 3 be featured here because we actually completed the entire chapter in this challenge. Though it is kind of funny to see KP Pete instead being a Shady Koopa and not a KP Koopa. Actually, because the sky is dark, let's say this isn't an animation error, and instead, let's just say this happens to Koopa Troopas when it gets dark. Yeah, perfect sense. So anyway, I was able to preserve the original final fight footage because, well, I saw my blue screen of death on my laptop and had to cut the footage obviously there. As a result, I end this fight with an additional gradual syrup in my bag. What I did turn 1 was use a shooting star. This is so that if the Shadow Queen doesn't switch to her dead hands in the first turn, she can't heal off of us. From there, I'm just using ground pound until the Shine Sprite Bingo activates. Since this is guaranteed to be queued up, we can force the Shadow Queen to wish her Dark Pulse on us, and as a result, just go into the fight with max HP and FP after it. Finally, because my FP is only 5 at max, I'm able to point swap and boost you with Double Dip P, immediately reaching Peril, and I'm just able to bully the Shadow Queen now by just using ground pound on her main body. It doesn't really matter what she tries to do at this point. The only way she could really save herself is by boosting her attack and defense, while at the same time trying to heal off of us. But she never does the latter, and as a result, we're just able to throttle her HP until it quickly falls to 0, giving us way to witness the rise of a new champion, Amsa, the Red Yoshi. It's just a formality to ask this, but can you beat Paper Mario with the Thousand Year Door of only Yoshi? Well, technically no, because you can't start the game with him as a partner without using cheats. But if you could, yeah, you definitely could beat the entirety of the game with only Yoshi. It's not even a question. He's after all the quite literal exception to the rule as far as anyone else being able to beat the game all by themselves. And he did so at only level 14. Now this is slightly worse than Miss Mouse, considering that she was able to beat the game at a lower level than him. But at the same time, despite being level 14, I never actually used the last level up, so why don't we just let that slide and say that Amsa was able to do it at level 13 all the same? Because enough for the experience he got fighting Grotus, Bowser, and Kamikoopa, he would have done it at level 13 just fine. So in summation, Amsa and Ms. Mouse are tied for first place, followed by Madame Flurry, Goombella, Bobbery, Vivian, and at the very bottom, Koops. And wow, it feels unreal to see that this series is actually over. All 7 partners and Mario got their reprises in this game. And it's kinda sad because this might be the last time I ever played the GameCube version of Paper Mario with the Thousand Year Door. I actually ended up getting a Switch specifically for the ability to play the remake when it comes out. Maybe a bad investment considering how late it is in the Switch's lifespan, but hey, I'm sure we'll have some laughs all the same. But enough about me, let's talk about Amsa just a little bit more before we end the video. You know, I always knew he was the apex predator of the game as far as partners were concerned. So much so, I titled his very first video as such, calling him that. And I think now that everything's all said and done, you can definitely see why. It's been fun getting to use Yoshi solo again. But sadly, all good things must eventually come to an end. But let's not cry that it's over. Let's smile that it happened. Congratulations, Amsa. You were, you are, and you always will be the champ. Long live the king. A massive thank you to my channel members, Splashay, Bob7, SiniStarMan, MB Switchy, and Nintendo Sixty-Jorts. It really means a lot, especially nowadays in this economy. And I very much appreciate you going the extra mile to support my videos. And for everyone else who watched this video this far in, thank you for watching. I'll see you all later.